You know that feeling when you see something, a piece of art, a beautiful photo, a stunning design, and you just have to stop and stare? Well, today we're talking about a 19th century thinker who basically said those moments are the whole point of life. Let's get into our explainer on Walter Pater. Everything really kicks off with this one incredible line: to burn always with this hard, gem-like flame. It sounds so poetic, doesn't it? A little mysterious even. And it's the absolute key to understanding everything he was about. So, this is the big question we're really digging into. What did Pater actually mean by this? What would it even look like to build a life around chasing these intense, fleeting moments of pure, unadulterated beauty?
To figure it out, here's our game plan. We'll break down his famous gem-like flame idea, get to know the man himself, and unpack his totally radical philosophy of art for art's sake. Then we'll glance at his major works, and, this is the cool part, see how his ideas are still popping up in our own digital world. All right, first up, let's tackle this whole gem-like flame thing head-on. What's it all about?
So this line comes right at the end of his most famous book, The Renaissance. And you've got to understand, it isn't just a pretty turn of phrase. It's a call to action. Pater is literally telling us to fill our lives with rich, powerful, sensory experiences, to really treasure the beauty we find in art and in the world around us.
So, who was this guy telling everyone to live for beauty? Let's meet Walter Pater.
Walter Pater was a British essayist and critic, writing right in the middle of the super strict Victorian era. But he wasn't your typical stuffy writer. The guy was an artist with words. He used this incredibly lush, poetic language to talk about his favorite things: art, books, and the very idea of beauty itself.
And he quickly became a huge deal in a cultural wave called the aesthetic movement. Now, this wasn't just some passing fad. It was a full-blown attempt to totally revolutionize how people thought about what art was even for.
So what was this revolutionary philosophy? What on earth did art for art's sake even mean?
Okay, the core idea was something called aestheticism. And it's pretty simple, really. It's the belief that you shouldn't judge art based on whether it teaches you a lesson or makes you a better person. Nope, its only job is to be beautiful and to make you feel something.
And this is where you see just how radical this was. The standard Victorian way of thinking was that art had a purpose. It had to be educational, it had to be moral. Pater and his friends showed up and basically said, no, its only purpose is to be beautiful. In a society totally obsessed with right and wrong, this was a shocking, almost dangerous thing to say.
So the main takeaway is this. Pater shifted the entire focus from some collective, moral goal and put it right onto the individual. What matters is your personal, subjective experience. How does this song, this painting, this movie make you feel? For Pater, that's where the magic happens.
So, how did Pater get these game-changing ideas out into the world? Well, he wrote a series of incredibly influential books.
You can see his major works came out over a span of about 2 decades. He burst onto the scene in 1873 with The Renaissance, followed it up with a really unique philosophical novel, and then dropped a collection of essays on style, all before his death in 1894.
The Renaissance was the big one. It was the bombshell. In it, he looks at masters like Leonardo da Vinci not for their historical weight, but for the sheer, intense aesthetic thrill their work gives us. He was saying, just look at it, experience it for its own beautiful sake.
Next up was Marius the Epicurean. Yeah, it's a novel, but it's really a philosophical road trip. It's all about a young Roman guy trying to figure out how to live a good life, trying to find that sweet spot between enjoying the world with his senses and thinking about it with his mind.
And in Appreciations, he doubled down on the idea of form. He argued that an artist's style isn't just pretty decoration on top of the real meaning. For Pater, the style, the way something is created, the lines, the colors, the words, that is a huge part of the experience itself.
So you might be thinking, okay, interesting old school critic, but so what? Well, this is where it gets really fascinating. Why does this 19th century thinker still matter so much today? See, his obsession with subjective experience and your personal interpretation of art didn't just disappear. It completely changed the game. It had this massive, lasting influence that pretty much laid the groundwork for modern art criticism and literary theory.
But forget the academics for a second. Let's bring it right into our world. Where do we see this philosophy of chasing intense, beautiful moments playing out right now?
His legacy is literally all around us. Think about it. That endless scroll through perfectly curated social media feeds filled with those stunning, glossy pictures. Or think about getting lost in the immersive worlds built with incredible 3D graphics in video games and digital art. Every time we do that, we are valuing the aesthetic experience purely for its own sake. That is Walter Pater's philosophy in action 150 years later.
Which brings us to one last question for you. Pater urged us to hunt for and hold on to those intense moments of beauty. So in our world, a world just saturated with fleeting digital images, what does that really mean? How do you find your own hard gem-like flame?